What's up, everyone? Kyle here. I am super excited to let you all know that my first published book is out now. It's called Travel Tips, a 20-something's comprehensive guide for traveling in the modern world. It's available on DoranceBookstore.com, I believe is the website. It's going to be available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble on their online websites soon as well. And you can also get a copy directly from me. You can just email me at ourtravelexperiences@outlook.com, and we can talk about a book, and I'll get a signed copy to you. I'm super excited to share it with you all. This was a dream come true for me, a bucket list item in the making, and I'm super excited to share it all with you now. So go check it out, everyone. There will be a link in the description below, and enjoy the episode. All right, welcome everyone. This is Our Travel Experiences. I'm your host, Kyle Rasmussen, and today I have with me another good friend of mine, Leah. Leah, how are you today?
I am fabulous. How are you?
Doing well. I'm very not enjoying I think it's been like a couple months now since we were in Cuba. I think that's the last time I really have traveled, it's a long period of time without travel for me, so I'm not enjoying it.
Yes. It's a little bit shorter for me because I was actually in New York a couple weekends ago, which it kind of feels like a home away from home for me because New York is about 3.5 hours from where I live. And then I'm actually going to be there again this week to meet up with some of our fellow FTLO friends, which will be super exciting.
Yeah, we were just talking about that before we hopped on. I mean, that sounds like a really fun. What I mean, such a cool idea to bring, like, alumni of the trip together. I think that's such a cool idea.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how they kind of operate it. Like, I want to know if there's going to be somebody from FTLO that, I mean, obviously there's going to be somebody there, but like, is it going to be from like like, are they going to be flying in from LA? But I definitely think it'll be a really fun experience, and I'm curious to see if there's anybody from New England that decides to take the trip to New York because we are so close to New York. But our our New Englanders are very set in their ways of not wanting to leave the state always for little things like this. So we shall see. I'm excited though. I'll have to report back.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Let me know how that goes. But I see why you don't want to leave the New England area. I mean, it's beautiful. Definitely one of my favorite parts of the country.
Yeah, honestly, I will say I we're very spoiled with the fact that there's just so much within 4 hours, which is
Mhm.
obviously a very easy drive. I mean, you have mountains, you have lakes, you have oceans and beaches, and just wildly different terrains and experiences, and not to mention the seafood. I mean, not to brag, but I do think that we have the best seafood in America.
It is pretty good. I will give you that.
All that cold water that we've got
Yeah.
in the Atlantic.
That's funny. Yeah. So, we, for all the listeners, we met on the Morocco trip, as some of my last few guests did as well, and we all became really good friends. And um, I've really enjoyed getting to know you over the last 6 months. I guess we've only known each other.
Yeah, wild. It feels like so much
Wow,
longer.
that's crazy. Yeah, it was October. Wow, it feels like
I
a
know.
lifetime ago.
I know. Well, we keep that thread going and we talk quite often, honestly. And I think that
Yeah.
that's pretty incredible. Like, that's one of, I think, my favorite parts of traveling is like the bonds that you make from people. Actually, this is kind of a crazy story. I have a friend of mine, actually, two friends of mine are in Portugal right now. They don't know each other. They're just there, ironically, like separately. And my tuk-tuk driver, when I was in Portugal, he was so great. And we started following each other on Instagram. So I suggested him to both of these friends. And one of them actually ended up booking with him. And they were sending me pictures. So it's just so incredible to, like, keep in contact with these people that you meet and that I feel like in any, like, years and years ago, we wouldn't have the ability to keep in contact as easily as we can today. So that's a great part about travel and technology.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I mean, it's so fun to make those connections all over the world. I mean, I know our bus driver in Morocco. Like, I think we're all friends with him on Instagram.
Yes.
Chat with him a lot. He's awesome.
He really is such a nice man. Like, it was just so cool. It's like just meeting people and seeing how they live and the way they experience things is just a true joy, and is like just makes it such a humbling experience. And it really is true. A lot of it, especially as we know from Morocco, it is about the journey.
Hmm. Definitely, definitely. Yeah, yeah. We spent a lot of time journeying together, but it was awesome. That was definitely one of my favorite experiences, traveling abroad for sure. Um,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah. What so yeah, then we went to Portugal afterwards, which you were just sharing about. What have you been to Portugal before we went after Morocco?
No, that was my first time, and I have to say I definitely wanna go back because I didn't really get to see Porto, and I didn't get to see the
Hmm.
Azores, and my best friend is 100% Portuguese. A lot of her family came over from there, and, they go often, so I definitely wanna go and explore it more. They just speak so highly of the the country and the islands and whatnot, so I'm definitely
Hmm.
excited to go back and explore. And it was just probably one of the more affordable countries, in terms of like food. It was incredible how inexpensive it is in comparison to everywhere else that I visited, and for the best quality. Like it was truly a joy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, their seafood is pretty good too, I must
Yes.
say.
Yes, it definitely was. Yep. I
Yeah,
know.
no, that I agree. I mean, just seeing Lisbon was, I feel like it was a good introduction to Portugal, but it looks like there's so much more, and you can go up and down the coast there, and I think there's really a lot to see there.
I agree. And I had started that Morocco trip. I decided to fly into Seville, and so I was able to explore Seville before I took a ferry from Tarifa, which is a port about 2 hours south of Seville. So I was excited to. That was my first time in Spain too, and Seville is a beautiful little area, and it's definitely like easy to see. And I would say 3 days is plenty, and that's just about what I had, give or take, depending on like how in depth you want to go. But that was a really fun experience too.
Yeah, how'd you decide on going to Seville?
Well, I whenever I book a trip, especially when it's going to be a longer journey, I look at the surrounding areas. So when I was trying to book flights for Morocco, I knew that it was going to result in like a lot of long layovers. And for me,
Mhm.
why would I want to waste PTO sitting in an airport? I'd rather use those days and have a shorter flight. So I was like, okay, like I knew that you could take a ferry to Morocco from Spain. I just didn't know like whereabouts you could do that, and it made the most sense to fly into Seville because there was a bus that you could take from Seville to Tarifa. Unfortunately, they changed the bus time on me, and I ended up having to take a very expensive Uber drive
No,
for
no.
2.5 hours because the bus time didn't correlate with my ferry time and the time that I need to arrive in Morocco too. But I mean, my Uber driver, he was amazing. He was kind of like a tour guide in and of himself. He was like, pointing things out along the way. So it ended up being like a really nice journey regardless. But yeah, that's like kind of a travel hack that I have is I like to look at what's around. Lapland is actually a perfect example because flying you flew into Finland, which was fine. Helsinki is a pretty big hub, so
Mhm.
that was easy enough to get to. But when we were flying out of Lapland, we were in Tromso, which is nearly the top of the world. And flying out of there, you had insane layovers. I mean, some of my trip mates they were bouncing around to 4 or 5 different cities. So I looked at the map and I
Jeez.
was like, you know what? Let me fly to either Copenhagen, or do I want to do like Stockholm? And I ended up deciding on Copenhagen because it is a city that's interested me. And also, I was already going to be in Sweden for that trip. So I'm like, let me get another country in there. And by doing that, I saved myself what for some people ended up being like well over a day and a half layover.
Wow,
So
that's crazy. Yeah,
yeah.
that's a really smart idea. I mean, sitting in an airport is only fun for so long, and especially if you have those longer layovers, it's really cool to see some of those places. You can do a lot in 12 or 24 hours.
Yep. Yep. And Denmark actually ended up, I mean, Copenhagen is probably one of my favorite cities that I've ever visited, which was very delightfully unexpected
Huh.
for me. And I would genuinely love to go back to Denmark. I mean, they consistently win like happiest country in the world year after year. I think they just won it again. So clearly it's a great place to be.
Yeah, yeah. Well, next time you go, let me know because I really want to go there. That's my motherland, so I want to
Oh,
go
really?
see
That's
it.
awesome.
Yeah, I know my grandpa and my dad when they went there. Gosh, back in the '90s, they tried to find where my grandpa grew up, or my great grandpa. Um, but I don't know if they could find it. So I would love to go back and try to find it for them. I think that'd
That's
be really
really,
cool.
yeah, I was going to say that is really cool.
Uh, but yeah, I with with those longer layovers, do you usually book a hotel or do you like store your luggage in at the airport or something like that and then go out and explore? What do you do there?
With the longer layovers, I usually make it like long to the point where like I get a hotel room and I explore the
Okay.
city itself. I've never, um, I've never done the whole like I'll tack on a day or 2 days before I
Mhm.
decide to like stay at an airport. I have to like make it worth my while. Um, Back in 2016, I had turned 30 and my best friend and I decided we were going to do like a little trip like around Europe, and we did the same thing. We had originally planned on just doing London, Paris, Brussels, and Amsterdam, but we found out when we were booking our flights home from Amsterdam, we had a layover in Iceland, and I was like, we can't have a layover in Iceland and not visit Iceland. Like, let's just tack on
Yeah.
2 more days and see Iceland. So that's what we did. Um, so I really try, like, if I can make it work PTO wise, I really try to do it that way because time is money, so I don't like to waste any
Mhm.
of it.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Yeah, going back to the Lapland trip, that's another FTLO trip. What do you think of that?
It was magical. That's like the word I always go to when I describe it. I mean, just pure magic. It is unlike any landscape I've ever seen. It is just like you're surrounded by snow and just it's very remote. Like there's not a lot of, once you get into the Arctic Circle, there really isn't a lot of like there's not a lot of population aside from reindeer, truly. In fact, I think where we were in Rovaniemi, Finland, there was actually a higher reindeer population than human population. So if that puts it in perspective for you.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was purely magical, and the activities they have you do are just like nothing you would ever experience anywhere else. Like they put you in these full buoyancy suits and you're floating in this like water with like little nano glaciers around you, and you're just
Oh
looking
wow.
up, and if you're lucky, which I happen to be very lucky when I was there, the northern lights were just like popping off, and
Oh
you're just like
man.
laying there, and it's just so surreal.
Man, I can't even imagine. That's got to be, one of those moments where like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I will say, I think that the biggest moment for me was, yes, when the first night when we saw the Northern Lights, which actually was an excursion, that I actually kind of orchestrated it before we even all met each other and like went off on this adventure. We were looking at some of the suggested like add-ons, which weren't through FTLO. They were just like, hey, if you want to do this, and I happened to find this company that took you on like they called it like chasing the northern lights, and it came with a professional photographer, and I was like, guys, this one makes the most sense. We can get awesome pictures. So everybody in our group ended up signing up for it before we had even all met each other. So I thought that was really cool. That was another trip where we really all bonded. That's actually where I met Catherine, who we went to
Mhm.
Morocco with. um and yeah, that was like that first like, whoa, I can't believe this is my life right now moment in travel for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. That looks like such a fun trip. I mean, all the FTLO trips do, but that one in particular looks amazing. And like you said, I mean, you're basically at the top of the world there, above the Arctic Circle. I mean, that's a really unique place to be.
It really was. I mean, when we were so Tromso is the city, and that's basically A pretty bustling city considering how high on, like, truly on top of the, like, you can see the curvature of the earth. That's how high you are, and it's just unreal. And yeah, that was I mean, it was quite the bustling little city there. We did the indoor outdoor saunas with the cold and hot plunge. That was really cool.
Ooh.
And then we did snowmobiling in Sweden, which was incredible. It was 4 hours of snowmobiling, so we were really out there, like in the
Jeez.
middle of the woods. Yeah. Yep. And then one of my favorite nights was the night that we stayed in like the glass igloos. I didn't sleep a wink because I'm like, how could I sleep? Like I just stare. I like stare into space all night.
Wow. Yeah, what were the stars like?
So it's funny because the stars were bright, but because of when you're seeing the northern lights, it's something to do with like the atmospheric pressure or something. The stars aren't as vibrant because you're getting all the other activity
Mhm.
that's happening. It's kind of the same
Mhm.
thing with, and actually we did have a moon. It happened to be I want to say it was a full moon while we were out there too. So that also kind of dulls the stars a little bit because the moon is so bright. But we did see the moon rise, which was pretty funny because our photographer was like, "No, that's not the moon." I was like, "It's got to be the moon because it certainly can't be the sun rising right now." But it looked like the sun rising. It was
Oh,
pretty
wow.
cool. Yeah. So that was really fun too, especially like up against the snow. It just was so bright. So he was like, "Wait, it's the sun or the moon?" It was really cool.
Oh man. Yeah, I'm jealous. That one looks like a lot of fun. And then you went to, was it Budapest this last winter, is that right?
Yeah, I know. This past year was, I mean, 2022 is my biggest travel year of my life thus far. I was able to visit 9 countries,
Wow.
um, which is truly incredible, and I'm so fortunate that that was able to happen. My friend and I did Prague and Budapest for the Christmas markets, and highly recommend. Those two cities are definitely able to be like explored in a week, and that's exactly the time frame that we had. Um, and I really felt like I got a good gauge on like the experiences like of each city with that timing. So if anybody was ever like wondering how much time you need, like you can obviously always spend more time in a city, but I do
Mhm.
think that if you're looking to get a flavor in that area, especially for the Christmas markets, like that's a great like chunk of time, like a week for like we basically split it up almost evenly between the two cities.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that's a pretty easy train ride between the two.
Yes, it is a long train ride though. It was about 7 hours, but they
Okay.
do have like a red eye train, which is pretty much what we ended up taking. So we didn't lose any time because we used that time to sleep, which was
Mhm.
nice. And that was like the smartest way to do it because it gave us the ability to like not waste time traveling an entire day basically.
Yeah.
Um if we had more PTO, really is what it really came down to. But if we had more, we would have tacked on Vienna because the train does go through Vienna. It stops in Vienna. It's
Okay.
just Vienna is a larger city, and we wouldn't have had time to do all three. So that's why
Okay.
we just chose Prague and Budapest instead. But yeah, definitely fun during Christmas for sure. Things all decorated, all the food stalls, the little artisan markets, just seeing what people make with their own hands and then sell, like, it's just incredible.
Yeah, those Christmas markets, especially in Eastern Europe, are absolutely insane.
Have you
Um,
been to any yourself?
yeah, I went to in Estonia and then in St. Petersburg in Russia. Uh,
Ooh.
yeah, it was amazing. I still have somewhere amongst all my souvenirs, I have Russian nesting dolls that I got there. Um, those
That's
are
really cool.
yeah, that's I don't know. I love all the lights and you got the snow and everything. It's such a magical time and then the medieval castles and all that. It's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. The cat, like that's incredible. Like we didn't have castles in Prague and Budapest, but there were like still beautiful. Like the Parliament building in Budapest is just
Mhm.
so pretty lit up. Actually, the stars there were really popping off. They were very.
Really?
There's a picture that I posted to my Instagram, and I couldn't believe the way my phone had and it was just my iPhone photo, but the way it captured the stars, I was blown away. I'm like, wow. Like, and then I felt like I was on that cruise. My friend and I just stayed outside the whole time, freezing, but we were like, these stars are incredible.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Wow,
Yeah, it was. I
that's
couldn't
great.
believe how they photographed that way. I was wow, that like they really were so bright. So,
That's awesome. Yeah, what else did you do besides the Christmas markets there?
so that was a champagne cruise that we took. And it was they did like just light fare, and it just was like a nice river cruise. Didn't really talk about anything like history wise. It was definitely more so of like a booze cruise, if you will, but a little more elevated. Um, and it was just beautiful to be able to be up and down the river and seeing like all the city, like the city lit up at night, because obviously like there's Buda and Pest, so there that's what the river separates the two, even though we all know it as Budapest. um so it was cool to see both sides of the river so lit up. I really loved seeing all the shoes. That was really really special. Obviously a really sad story behind that, that is it's a tribute to the Jewish community for when during the World War II, all they had lined up all the Jews, and this is so sad, but it's like it is a truly beautiful memorial that they kind of like tributed to them, but they had all been killed and they all were in the, like they basically all fell into the water. So now it's a beautiful monument, and is there to make us not forget about the things that happened in this world. And then for Prague was a little bit different. Prague was more food stalls rather than artisans selling goods. It was more kind of like it was almost like a big party, honestly. Everybody kind of like was in the middle of the square, and the astronomical clock is right there too. So every hour they have the astronomical clock that goes off, and there's like a little parade. It's a parade in the clock. But that always draws a big crowd too. So more like one big party. Um, but that city actually reminded me a lot like of Seville. The building facades were just very similar, so picturesque. It kind of felt like you were in like this village out of like Beauty and the Beast, if you will. Cobblestones everywhere, just absolutely beautiful. Whereas Budapest was a little bit more on the metropolitan side, a little more industrial, beautiful buildings and architecture, but just in a different way. Um, so it was fun. It was fun to see that, like, that was my first time in Eastern Europe, actually. That's the farthest east I've gone so far. So that was a cool experience.
Okay, yeah. What you said you went to 9 countries in 2022. What over the last year, what kind of led you to increase your travel so much?
The pandemic, it really being somebody who would definitely travel. I mean, I started traveling when I was young. I mean, my first trip abroad, I was 19 years old. I hopped on a plane by myself and I went to go visit a friend in Australia.
Wow.
And yeah, and to take that kind of journey by yourself is, I mean, it's 15 hours. Well, I think that flight that I took was like once I got to LA, it was 15 hours and 45 minutes. But to get to
Mhm.
LA, I had come from Providence and Chicago. So it was quite a journey. And so that kind of like ignited my like travel bug, if you will. And when the pandemic hit, and hearing when everything first shut down, and everybody saying, oh, we're probably not going to be getting back to travel until like 2023, 2022, it just like that was just such a scary thing for me, because I was like, wait a minute, like this is my prime age in life where I've got the PTO, I've got a great career and the money to do so. Like I want to be out there seeing the world, and
Mhm.
to know that I couldn't for possibly 1 to 2, 3 years, who knew, really scared me. So the minute everything started to kind of like finally like coming out of it, I was like, I need to see as much as I can. And yeah, I booked Lapland. That was the first. I had booked it in January, and I didn't. I left in March, so it was a very last minute trip. In all
Wow.
honesty, like the trip of that caliber, it was definitely very last minute.
Yeah, especially coming out of the pandemic and everything, to just give yourself that short runway. That's brave of you.
Yeah, I had been. I mean, I had been to Europe enough where I was like, I'm comfortable enough in Europe, because by that time
Mhm.
I had already been to like London and Paris twice. All those the countries that I had named when I was just speaking of my trip when I turned 30. So I was comfortable enough going back to Europe, just knowing. I had been in Italy in 2018, so it wasn't that bad, but I will say I am not a skier. Even though I live in New England, I don't do snow sports. So I didn't have snow pants. I didn't really have a good puffer. Like, so I had to like scramble to buy all the stuff that all the gear that I needed to be in the Arctic Circle. But yeah, that trip alone, I kicked it off with Finland, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. So that was the first 4 countries.
Wow.
And then I knew I had been deciding between Lapland and Morocco, and I ended up opting for Lapland because the dates, they only release four trips, I think 4 or 5 trips per year, because it's such a short window
Mhm.
of good weather and the ability to see the Northern Lights. So then I was like, you know what? I was getting let me try to think. I had gotten promoted, and I was like, you know what? I got a promotion. I'm gonna book Morocco now. I've got alumni 100. I think they give you like $100 credit or something. Like, I'm just gonna book Morocco, and that was it. And I booked Morocco, and then I tacked on Spain and Portugal. And then while I was in Morocco, my friend was like, remember how we were talking about the Christmas markets? Like, what if we skip Thanksgiving and do that? And I was like, let's do it. Like, and I remember we were all sitting around the pool in our beautiful Riyadh while Sarah was out getting us McDonald's. And I was like, guys, I just booked a trip for the Christmas markets literally a month from now. And you guys are all like, what?
Oh man, that's so
Wild.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2022 was one of the best years of my life, I have to say, like thus far. It's going to be hard to top that one.
Okay. Do you have plans this year? I mean, we've already been to Cuba this year, but plans for the rest of the year to try to top that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can get as many countries in. That was quite a feat, honestly. I'm still in shock of how I actually finagled that. And I look back on it so fondly. Like, I'm so in love with my life, and I can't believe that actually was my reality last year. Considering I do have a full-time job that it has nothing to do with travel or like traveling or anything.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I've been to Puerto Rico. I was in Puerto Rico in January, Cuba obviously in February, New York in March. I will be going to Wilmington / Carolina Beach. Is one of my favorite home away from home destinations. I have a friend that lives out there, so I have a condo that I can stay at free of charge, which is lovely. And I usually go and work from out there, so I'll like spend the week, but I'll be like working from there and then just enjoying the beauty of North Carolina. And that area of North Carolina, I feel like, is a truly hidden gem. So I'll probably be doing that in May. June, I have booked a little national park road trip. So we're flying into Jackson Hole, my friend and I, and we are doing um, Grand Tetons, and then we are renting a car and we're driving up to Glacier National Park and doing Glacier National Park in Montana. And then we are driving up to Banff in Canada and we're doing Banff. And then we're driving back and flying back out of Jackson, Wyoming.
That's gonna be such a great trip.
Yes, I'm really excited for that. I think we're doing that for about, I think it's like 10 or 11 days or so we can make sure we give ourselves enough time in the areas. So
Mhm.
I'm excited for that. And then I haven't booked it yet, but I am going to do the Bali trip with FTLO again, another
Okay.
FTLO trip. And I'm leaning towards either over Labor Day or over Columbus Day. Because that's how you get to travel a lot. You got to get the free PTO days in there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good tip because it's one extra day you don't have to worry about kind of thing.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. What other kind of travel hacks do you have?
So I always make sure that I fly on a red eye, especially when I'm flying out, because I'll use that day. I'll work that from that day. Because again, like, I hate wasting like PTO on travel days. So similarly, as we did for Cuba, we had to get to Cuba. I mean, we had to get down to like Florida basically a day early. I did the same thing. I flew to Florida. I did work from Florida because it was easy enough to work from Florida. But yeah, I love to take a red eye. I also make sure when I'm coming home, um, depending on what time the flight's at, I try to pick a flight that lands me home in the evening, and I stay up for the entire flight. I will read a book, I will watch a movie. I will not allow myself to sleep, because I swear that's the only reason why I've never suffered from jet lag in all my travels. I've never
Uh,
had jet lag.
I'm jealous.
So it's about, I mean, it takes discipline, I will say, because I'm also somebody, in full disclosure, I I don't have trouble sleeping. Like I'm very regimented with my sleep though. So if I know I need to stay awake, I will make it happen.
Mhm.
Um because I'm also a very tiny human, so like sleeping on a plane isn't super difficult for me because I can kind of curl up in a ball.
Yeah,
Um
I hate you.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I try to do that, and then as you all know, I never check my luggage. I am
Mhm.
a carry-on gal through and through. I never like let my luggage out of my sight. Um, and that's
Yeah.
mostly because you have less of a chance of things going wrong.
Mhm. It also wastes less time too, because you don't have to wait for your check bag.
Exactly. Like everything about the airport process is so much more seamless when you don't have to check your
Mhm.
luggage. And like, Becca said to me what she said in our thread the other day. She goes, "It still amazes me how you fit so much in those tiny suitcases." But I mean, I guess my hack for that is actually a hack that my friend taught me. The lay flat method. I used to roll. I don't roll anymore. I fit so much more with the lay flat method, and I'm big on, I don't know, ladies, if you shop at Sephora, utilize those free samples that you get, because at the end of the day, you don't need to take full size product with you. It's okay if your skincare regimen is not like the same that it is every other day. Like for 2 weeks, it's totally fine. Um that's like another I feel like that's another space saver that I have.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I never really thought about that, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for the gal. I mean, it's a waste of space for me. And you know me, I love my outfits, I love my fashion. So I have to make sure I've got my outfits going on.
Mhm. Yeah, for all the listeners, the best fashion on all the trips, with FTL that we've been on is definitely Leah.
You are too kind.
Her Instagram is just very good fashion.
Oh, yes, the fashion and travels. That's basically what my Instagram has become, honestly.
Yeah.
Great outfits in even greater places.
Uh-huh. Exactly, exactly.
But
That's
yeah,
funny.
you would never know it by looking at my photos, but I truly am a very light packer. Um yeah, I just prefer it that way. I like to travel with at least with the least amount of baggage I can.
Mhm. Yeah, well, that's nice. I mean, it's less you gotta worry about, it's less you have to lug around, from place to place, and, um, yeah, I just feel like it's so much more efficient, and you realize, you don't actually need everything that you're used to back home.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like even in Morocco, I was mad at myself because I'm like, I brought an extra pair of sandals that I definitely did not need to bring with me, and I was so mad because I'm like, oh, we got that tagine that we ended up like both me and
Yeah.
Catherine left ours behind. I mean, we gave it to Sarah, which was great because she had been moving and she didn't have whole lot of stuff, so that was actually like very serendipitous. But like things like that, you have more room to take stuff back with you.
Mhm. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
always
exactly. It's always
that's
it's
always
always good to leave room for those souvenirs.
Yes, exactly. And it was nice in Cuba where we like all of us had donated like all the extra stuff that we didn't need. So that all freed up our suitcases in Cuba. So that was great.
Mhm. Yeah, 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 I mean, you are, definitely, the packing queen, I would say.
Thank you.
Uh,
I appreciate that. And I also kind of live by that notion where, especially even if you're traveling out of the country, if you're going to Europe, for instance, everything that you get here in the US, you can get in Europe, like even down to
mhm.
basic pain medication, like so thinking about that, like, okay, if I forget my charger, I know I can buy another one. Apple is worldwide. Like,
Mhm.
there's so many different things that it's not like the end of the world if you forget something. I mean, if you forget personal medication, that's one thing. That's not good. But, for the most part, anything that you forget at home, even if, you forget a pair of sandals, you can go and buy sandals no matter what country you're in.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I know that's a hard one for me to remember. I'm always like, "Oh, I wanna bring this and this and this, so I don't have to worry about it at all." But then I'm like, "You know what? I'm taking up all this space, and I don't need all these shirts. If I need an extra shirt or something, I can always go buy one, or go buy a shampoo or something if I need it. Don't have
exactly.
to take it with me all the time."
Yep, and I never bring hair styling tools either. I learned that lesson for my first time in Europe actually. I brought a steamer with me because
Ah,
fashion wise, steamer. And I'll never forget, I was in a hostel in London, and it was beautiful. I had, we had our like own separate room. It was actually like nicer than some hotels I've heard about. I like, thankfully I've never encountered, but, it was actually like a really nice space. But I went and plugged in the steamer, and oh my gosh, that thing was spewing water. It took on a mind of its own. I was like, what is happening? So that's all I needed. I was like, you know what? From now on, I will use the hair dryer in hotels, and I will just be wrinkly, and that's fine.
Yeah, it's I don't know for women's fashion at all, but I know like some men's shirts, some of like the nicer ones that I have are like that anti-wrinkle material or whatever. So like
Yes.
if you're out there and it's like a little bit humid at all, like the wrinkles will go away,
Yeah, you
which is
were
great.
always very well pressed, so that makes sense. That's your little hack right there. I get that.
Yeah, it makes it really easy. I mean, it's always nice when there's an iron or something, in the hotel. But also, who cares? Where I'll be in a place where I'll probably never go back to, um, and see people I will probably never see again. Like, I don't really care if I'm all wrinkly.
Yep. Yeah, totally. I hear you there.
Uh, what's been some of your favorite travel memories over the years?
Oh my gosh. So many. Honestly, it's so hard to pinpoint one, but I will say, my first time in Paris was magical for me because I obviously love fashion so much. Um, I mean, I remember just like sitting in the park where the Eiffel Tower was and just like staring at it. And I was there during the day, and then I was there in the evening to see like the light show, and it was just, Paris had always been so idyllic to me, and I just absolutely loved it. And I went back again, and I need to go back again, honestly, because it was just so magical to see a city that I had, aspired to visit for so long, and then it got to be a reality twice for me, which was incredible. Um, and Morocco, honestly, I just remember sitting on the top of a sand dune by myself while you guys were all down, at camp and whatnot. And I was like, just looking up at the stars and the moon. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is so incredible. Like, I'm sitting at the top of a sand dune in the middle of the Sahara Desert with a bunch of strangers that don't even feel like strangers at this point. And I was just so in awe with the country itself and the experience and the people. I mean, that really made it even more incredible for me.
Mhm.
Um, Seeing the Northern Lights, I didn't get to see them when I was in Iceland, which I kind of knew going into it. It was too early in the season. But seeing the Northern Lights was just another experience that a lot of people, even when they go chasing them, they don't find them. And we were lucky enough to see them in every country we visited. So we saw them twice in Finland, once in Sweden, and then once or twice in Norway, actually. And it was just incredible. Every single time you're just like, whoa, like, this is insane that this is like real life right now. Things that people
Yeah.
write songs about, and you're experiencing them. And in Cuba, meeting the people, honestly, and being really humbled by the way they are just so happy with how little they truly have. And it really just puts things in perspective for you, because I will say that traveling, I love to learn cultures, and I like to immerse myself in other cultures, because I think that it truly makes me appreciate tenfold what I have in this life.
Oh, yeah.
And it drives you to give back, and just like, travel in a way that you're actually giving back to the people, while also, nourishing yourself mentally and physically, honestly.
Mhm.
um is just so magical to me. So I have many, many moments. I would need, so much more time. It makes me
Yeah.
sad that I don't keep a diary anymore. My younger self would be so upset with my elder self for not still keeping a diary. But I guess my Instagram's my diary.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's nice now with the pictures. That's why I take a lot of pictures when I travel, because rather than, I'm not always going to have the time to write a big long, entry about each day when I was traveling, but I can take pictures of places, and then it'll bring back that memory later on. Um, so I think that's really nice. Another tip I would say too.
Yeah, I know. And a lot of people will say, like, oh, you're always you're worried about pictures. And it's like, yeah, but I think it's all part of it. I think you can absolutely still be living in the moment while taking pictures. I think it's just
Yeah.
a balance, just like anything else in life. It's all about balance. And,
Mhm.
yeah, my pictures that they've become it, my Instagram is essentially my digital diary. And who knows, maybe one day I'll like actually be driven to like stare at the photo and put myself back there and write to that as well, which would be kind of cool. So maybe that's on my to-do list this year. I'll make that a goal for the year.
There you go. I like it. Um, yeah, what's some of your bucket list places to travel to? You
So
haven't been to yet.
Bali is definitely one of them. So I'm excited to be here. I actually need to make that my on my to-do list is make that deposit and to book the flights and whatnot.
Mhm.
But yeah, Bali's definitely there. I want to do I want to explore more of South America. South America, admittedly, was never really on my radar. And I think it's because, I don't know, growing up, I was never an outdoorsy person. And then, I kind of, in my adult life, started to become one, like, really just started appreciating nature when I was younger. And when I went to Utah, that was it for me. I was like, okay, I'm addicted to landscapes. I'm addicted to hiking and being out in nature in the wilderness, which is why I'm doing another national park trip this year. So, that being said, I would really enjoy doing like the Machu Picchu region, just parts of South America where you can go hiking and Patagonia. And, so I think that would be a really cool experience. Oh my gosh. Back to Australia, because I was so young when I was there. I was 19. So I think it would be a very different experience for me at 36, going to be 37. New Zealand also I would tack on to that because while you're out there, you got it, right?
Yes. 100%.
And now New Zealand's opened back up again, so that's incredible. Um, I it's so hard because I've actually, I mean, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but I've seen so bucket list places already, and it's kind of crazy to me that I've been lucky enough to experience that. So it's kind of just like an ever growing. The more I discover, the more I hear. Like Colombia, like Colombia would have never been on my radar if it wasn't for FTLO. And then you speaking of it too, how highly you and Sarah actually speaking about it. So I would love to see Colombia as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. The more places I go, the more I want to see.
Hmm.
It's a bad problem to have.
I know. I hear you there. There's just so many places and so little, PTO. And to that point, I'm glad that I'm doing it at this age because I don't know. I think about how tired I am sometimes after like when I was in New York City at the end of the night, I was like, "Oh my gosh, we walked how many miles today? I'm exhausted." I think about what that would be like when I'm retired and I'm like that it's going to be even harder. So,
Yeah, yeah. That's a really good point. That's part of why I've tried to travel as much as I can now. Even though I might not get to experience more of the more expensive side or the nicer side of travel. Um, but same thing. Looking at those retirees who now it's really hard to get around and it's tiring and you can't do some of the things in some of these locations. And just knowing like tomorrow's not guaranteed. There could be another pandemic tomorrow, and you might not get to travel again. So I just don't want to regret missing any chances I could have had.
I fully resonate with that. I do think that that is what really propelled me into like 2022. It's like I felt like I needed to make up for the prior 2 years where I wasn't really allowed to leave the country.
Mhm.
And that was just, it scared me. And now I'm like, okay, like if I have the time and I have the money, I'm booking the trip. I'm seeing the places.
Yeah,
Because when I'm retired, then I can look back and be like, okay, where was my favorite place that I can just go and spend a week at? Because I don't need to worry about bopping around and getting like a little flavor of everything. I'm tired and I want to
mhm.
slow down.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. I love it. Well, that's I know we both have some time constraints here, so that's probably a good place to leave it. But any last stories or tips or tricks or anything for the listeners?
I mean, I would say if you've been thinking about it, just do it. Honestly, I feel like I my Mimi always wanted to go to Hawaii. She always talked about it, and she never made it there. And I think it was a little bit out of fear and just the unknown. And honestly, like, I am a big a big believer in pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, because that's where the magic happens, and it can be uncomfortable, but then it becomes comfortable, and then it's like nothing else you've experienced before. So, always push.
Yep. Love it. Well, that's a good spot to end it. Leah, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. It's been fun getting to know you over the last 6 months, and I'm looking forward to some of the travels that hopefully our group plans soon.
Yes,
Um,
I can't wait to travel with y'all again. It'd be so
yeah,
much fun.
I know. I'm really excited. I'm just. I feel like the universe, put us all together, and everything just kind of worked out with these two trips, like exactly right for us all to make it work. And so I'm excited to do more travel with you guys for sure.
Same. I can't wait.
Yeah. Well, awesome, Leah. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you somewhere around the world soon.
Same. Bye.
All right, bye.
Hey everybody, Kyle here. If you enjoyed today's show and want more, you can always check out every episode on Spotify, Anchor, YouTube, and now Amazon Music as well. Just search for Our Travel Experiences on any of those platforms and it will pop up. You can also find everything all in one place on my website, ourtravelexp.com. And if you want to see my travel pictures as well as travel pictures from guests on the show, you can check them out on Instagram. The page is called Our Travel Experiences Podcast. And if you want to share your own pictures on the Instagram page or be a guest on the podcast, you can message me via that Instagram page or email me at ourtravelexperiences@outlook.com. I would love to see your pictures and hear about your travel experiences, so please send them my way. And if that isn't enough for you, make sure to check out my weekly YouTube show, From Around the World Fridays. Every Friday, I'm taking 5 to 10 minutes to answer questions from listeners, share some souvenirs that I bought over the years, share my postcards over the years that I've accumulated, or share videos and pictures from one particular city or country that I visited, and so much more. So check it out, guys. You won't be disappointed. And make sure you go subscribe to that as well. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you somewhere around the world soon.